Hey folks, it's Echo here. I am here to give you the 100% accurate and objective tier ranking of all the perks in 7 Days to Die. No, I'm just kidding, folks. Obviously, there's no perfect tier ranking that you could do, but I'm going to give my spin on it, and hopefully for new players and some of you old ones, it'll give a perspective into how I play the game, and I hope that you'll join me down in the comments and tell me where I'm wrong. If there's some skills here that I don't leverage right, by all means, teach me. Alright, let's do it. We'll kick things off with a perception tree, starting off with the combat perks, which govern rifles, explosives, and the spears. Each of these I am going to give an A tier, because you have to have these to be effective with your chosen weapon. There's a much longer conversation to be had about the comparison of weapon versus weapon with the new meta, but I'll save that for another video. But let's dive in first to Deadeye. This is going to be your perk that governs rifle attack, so it's going to give you increased reload, damage, and aim speed. Additionally, as it progresses at level 3, you're going to get kill streak, which gives you increasing levels of damage for each successive kill, and that one scales all the way up to 30, 40, and 50%. Next, we've got Demolitions Expert, again an A tier. This is going to govern your rocket launchers, your grenades, your pipe bombs, all that good stuff. It's going to give increased damage, reload speed, aim speed, and then also dismemberment chance, and it scales up pretty nicely. It doesn't have any other interesting perks that go with it. Next, we have Spearmaster. This is our first melee skill. This one is going to do more damage across the board. It's also going to allow you to slow enemies with a power attack, but most importantly, this one is going to reduce your stamina cost. That is the most important thing for all of your melee skills, to get points into this quick, because it allows you to stay through battle. Additionally, for all of these, you're going to find more associated parts to be able to make the weapons for these, as well as magazines associated with your chosen weapon. Next up, we have Quick Imperceptive. This one was previously a 3-step upgrade where it only had 3 levels, and it now has 5 levels. So the cap is still 25% at the top. Previously, I ranked this as an A tier because it only took 3 points into this to get you up to 25% increased speed. Now that it is 5 points in this, it's still a really good skill, but I am going to drop it down to a B tier. In the general perks, we have the Infiltrator, which used to be a 3-step and now is 5, and I would have had it as an F tier at 3 steps, but now this is like an F-. It's horrible. You take less damage from landmines, which just aren't prevalent throughout the game, and then you can pick up landmines, which you don't really want to use because it just blows up pieces of your base. Overall, huge fail perk. I wish we could get something better here for this one. Animal Tracker, I am also going to put this as an F tier. This just isn't that usable. It's really easy to find animals around the map. You don't need something to go search them out. There's just so many perks that will advance you farther in the game. Maybe the 5th level to let you know where dire wolves and bears are, just to stay away from them, but otherwise, this is a pretty worthless perk. Next up, we're going to switch from the bad to the good, the Penetrator. This is definitely an A tier perk. This is going to allow you to get better armor penetration on zombies. As you scale up, it does more and more, and also allows you to penetrate multiple targets. I will say that they added this 5th perk ability here, which allows you to penetrate 4 additional targets, which I just think is unusable. So if you're going to get this, I would probably stop at level 4. Now let's jump into Perception Mastery. For all of the masteries, I'm actually going to give them separate tier rankings for each of the individual skills in them. For this one, we'll start off with Cushion Crawler, which gives you additional dukes and cash found in all kinds of places. While this one's handy, I'm going to rank it as a C tier. It might be up to a B, but it's nice passive income, but it doesn't give you that much. You get 3 or 4 dukes maybe per piece that you break down. It's really important to know you've got to use that harvesting skill. So you got to use your wrench or your ratchet or your impact driver to be able to get those extra dukes and cash. The next one up is Salvage Specialist, which allows you to harvest steel from cars, gun safes, and shopping carts. This one is fantastic. I've done some testing on this, and in general, without any perks in it, you're going to get about 5 or 6 steel from a car. But once you're fully ranked up in salvage ops, you're talking about getting 10, 11 steel per car that you break down. Gun safes are right around the same amount. Shopping carts are around a quarter at 2 to 3. So overall, I'm going to give this an A rank as a great way to get steel without having a crucible. Vital Wound is a new mastery that allows spear and rifle primary attacks to cause bleeding. I'm going to give this a C, bordering on a D. Basically what it's going to do is 1 damage per second over about 20 seconds. I did find that in terms of stacking, it seems like if you get up to 3 hits in a small period of time, that the tick speed is a little bit faster, but the damage is pretty insignificant in the grand scheme of things. Blood Rush, sprinting power attacks with spears do 25% more damage. I'm going to give this a D, not because more damage isn't good, but because of the infrequency of you being able to use this. you're going to have to be, kind of moving forward, sprinting, and power attacking to kick this in. So if it wasn't all those things at once, you'd probably have it proc more often, but because you've got all those conditions on it, I don't find this that great. Now we get to the top tier, which is 50% more damage with rifle shots. This is flat out S tier. This is changing the meta in terms of how the rifles can operate in combat. And if this is your pathway, you got to get this one. You got to get this one if rifles are going to be your game. For the scavenger perks, we've got Treasure Hunter, which previously I would have probably put as a C or D tier, but I am going to bump this all the way up to B, and some could probably argue that this could be an A tier now. The reason is the first 2 levels of this give you plus 50% damage and then plus 100% damage to dirt respectively. You get that in addition to have the faster radius decrease when you're doing dig quests and things like that. So this actually makes dig quest palatable, and then you start to add on the other stuff. As you move through this, more items and chests, and then to the top one, extra dukes and cash, and then the final one adds a whole extra weapon, armor, or rare item. So some huge potential as, an alternative path, and I like them giving us different ways to play like this. Salvage Ops has always been A tier. It's not just that you get additional damage, reduced stamina cost from using salvage tools, it's the fact that you get a ton of materials here that sell really, really well. So this is both a money maker, it's an alternative way to harvest iron, so lots of versatility out of this skill. Next we have the strength tree, which has been historically the strongest or one of the strongest in the game. We'll start off with the combat perks here. We've got Boomstick, Pummel Pete, and Skull Crusher. All these are going to be A tier once again, but we'll go through some of the unique characteristics of these. So Boomstick here is going to give you more damage, faster reload, and it's also going to help stun enemies. So this will also govern your magazine and your parts finds, just like all the rest of them. At the top level here, you also get leg shots, cripple opponents. Next, we've got Pummel Pete. This is going to be your club skill. The skill allows clubs to do more damage, as well as attacks doing additional damage to stunned enemies, and power attacks have a stronger knockdown chance. And then same as with all these, we've got additional stamina reduction, and then successive hits with this give a chance for this 100% damage bonus on top of all of that. Skull Crusher has always been good, but now that it's paired with the new Sledge Saga series, it is phenomenal. This skill is going to give your sledges increased damage, more chance to knock down enemies with power attacks, as well as our scaling reduction of stamina costs paired with the stamina that you get back from killing blows. Expect to see a lot more people using sledges. Grand Slam will affect sledges, clubs, and bats. It gives an increased chance to ragdoll enemies, but it only works if you power attack while sprinting. Because of that limitation, I'm going to give it a D, otherwise it would actually be a really good perk. Next we have Big and Fast. This is the speed one for strength, so this is going to allow you to hit faster. So again, this went from 3 up to 5, and we're going to again give this a B tier, just because it got watered down going from 3 levels all the way up to 5. But overall, still a very, very powerful one, especially for that slow swinging sledge, makes a big difference over time. In the general skills, we've got Pack Mule, which in the past has always been F tier, and it is now S tier. This is amazing, even after they just put out the recent patch, which nerfed it by 50%. It is still one of the best damage mitigating perks in the game. In addition to being able to carry more items, you also craft faster in your inventory, and you get a 5% chance per level of just ignoring damage. So 5, 10, 15, 20, up to 25% chance to completely ignore. And the really powerful thing about this one is you can low dip this. And when I say low dip, what I mean is that you don't have to be a strength focused character. You could actually just put your 5 points into strength, which you'll probably use for Miner 69 or other stuff otherwise, and get all the way up to level 5 Pack Mule, giving you that 25% damage mitigation. I know personally I'm going to have a hard time not getting this, regardless of which type of build that I'm putting together. The Strength Mastery perks are kind of all over the place. The first one in this is a straight up F tier. Miner's Mending, all critical injuries heal 100% faster while holding a mining tool. You're just never going to do this. You're not going to pull out a mining tool to be able to heal critical injuries faster. It's just illogical. The next one up, I'm going to give it a B tier. This is Brass Miner, adds a 5% chance to scrap brass when harvesting ore blocks. This is just a nice bonus way of getting a little bit of extra brass, because right now typically you're getting it from doorknobs and crazy places like that. So nice to have an alternative route. The third one is another Bizarro Land one. I'm going to give this one a D tier. The Battle Miner. Mining tools like pickaxes and shovels deal more damage to zombies when used in combat. The challenge with this one is that pickaxes and shovels don't have additional perks associated with them, so it doesn't really scale. So I'm going to give this one a D tier. Next one, Headhunter. This one is big. So this one we're definitely going to give an A tier. Headshots with clubs or sledges have an additional 50% chance to dismember enemies. And then finally, the 5th level, kills with strength-based weapons grant 25% damage resistance for 5 seconds. They even nerfed this in the recent patch, again by half. It was originally 50% damage resistance for 10 seconds, but even 25% at 5 seconds is still S tier given the likelihood of this to proc. So basically you're looking to maintain a kill every 5 seconds to be able to keep that 25% damage resistance. Jumping into the construction perks, we'll start off with Miner 69er, which is definitely an A tier as it governs block damage for harvesting tools, as well as helps you get those tool digest magazines to be able to progress in crafting for all your tools, as well as the stamina reduction for all of those. So this one is a pretty big deal. This is, if you're planning on doing any base building, you're going to want to have points here. So absolutely an A tier. And then that pairs nextly with the next one, which I will also consider A tier, and that's Motherload. This allows you to harvest more with all those same tools that we're just talking about there. So all the way up to 100% at level 5. This is just going to save you a ton of time, especially when you pair those two together. Junk Miner's a new skill that came in with 2.0. And basically this is like Motherload for junk, where you get 20, 40, 60, 80, 100% more resources from harvesting cloth and plastic. So I'm going to give this one a B tier. It's a nice bonus for all of that. Cloth ends up becoming one of your biggest bottlenecks in the game as you progress towards the late stage for making duct tape and things like that. So this one has some good versatility, but I wouldn't quite put it up at an A level. The Fortitude tree receives some nice updates. Starting with the combat perks, we'll jump into the Brawler and Machine Gunner, which are both going to be A tier once again, your associated weapon skills. The Brawler is going to govern your fist weapons, and its abilities are all over the board. Starting at the first level, you get increased damage, and we get our stamina reduction, but we also get this ability where punches in the head negate the infection ability, allowing you to get right up close and personal. At level 2, you get an additional ability of 30% chance to stagger opponents with power attacks, and that just keeps getting stronger and stronger. So at the next level, you get knockdown chance in addition to that stagger. So you're staggering, you're knocking zombies down, they can't infect you, and then at the top 2 levels, you get the stamina back on kills. Next, we've got the Machine Gunner. This one does faster reload speed, faster fire rate, and more damage per level. And then additionally, once you get up to level 3 through 5, you'll start to get stamina back for every shot that you land. I'm guessing the original intent was that you would switch between punching things and shooting things, but honestly I just normally stick to one or the other. Next up we have Lightning Hands, which is going to increase your brawler speed. Much like the other ones, we're going to rank this one as a B tier, just because again scaled from 3 up to 5, but it will give you up to a total of 25% faster punching. Next we'll jump into the survival perks, starting with the Huntsman. I had a hard time with this one. We're going to give this one a D. This perk is going to allow you to get more resources when you harvest animals. So primarily you're looking at meat, bones, and then leather. The amount increases 20% per level, and I've just not found this one overly useful. I normally am swimming in these types of resources. Next, we're going to talk pain tolerance. I'm going to give this one a B tier. So this one has 2 things that it does. The first thing that it does is reduce HP loss by a percentage, and then gives you reduced chance to get stunned. The stun is really powerful, especially when you're in that brawler build and you're getting up close and personal. The reduction in hit point loss is not quite as strong as Pack Mule is now, because Pack Mule is a 25% chance just to ignore the damage entirely. Versus this is every time you do get hit, it will reduce that damage by 25%. Still very good, still definitely a B tier. All right, let's jump into Fortitude Mastery. The first level of this, Bleed Stopper. While interesting, I'm going to give this a C ranking. Killing an enemy will instantly stop bleeding injury without using a bandage. It's nice, but it's not a guaranteed when you're in the thick of things. The next one down here is Antibodies. After recovering from infection, you're immune to further infection for 2 real-world hours. I'm gonna give this a D. I mean, this might be good in really early game, but the logical problem is that you're gonna have to have at least 7 points into strength, which means you're well out of early game and probably have stacks of antibiotics or honey. The next one, the dentist. This one's really interesting, and I kind of had a hard time wrapping my head around the ranking of this one. I'm gonna give this a B tier. So what this does is fist weapons have a 10% chance to gain silver or gold, basically from zombie kills. It's kind of a nice passive income in the background without you having to do anything. I kind of struggle between B and C tier, as this is very similar to the Perception Mastery perk that gives you dukes and dollars from couches and such. You let me know what you think. Next up, we have Resilience, which is going to give us 50 extra health. I'm going to give this an A tier. And then the last one is another 50 health, which is A tier. And I look at this for this build, it just gives you this nice buffer of health to be able to work with, especially when you pair it with the new recovery perks in Fortitude. And the first recovery perk we've got is a brand new one called Siphoning Strikes, and this is absolutely S tier, full on. Each level of this gives you 2 hit points back per melee kill, going up to 4, 6, 8, and 10 total. Even to low dip, this is extremely powerful just to get up to level 2 of Siphoning Strikes, and that's 4 hit points back for every melee kill. Specific to the brawler build, this gets extremely strong because you're getting X number back per kill. In addition to that, if you've got the right book in the Bar Brawler series, then you're also getting a hit point back every time you punch something. So that's potentially 1 health per hit plus 10 health per kill. Next up, we've got Healing Factor, and I'm going to give this a C ranking. There's essentially 2 abilities that go with this. One is that you heal a little bit faster, but at the cost of consuming more food and water. And then the other one is that critical injuries will also heal faster. After this, we have Iron Gut. So this is kind of a conditional ability. I'm going to give it a B tier. So what this one does is reduce food and water loss by exertion, so running around, sprinting, doing things like that, and that will increase as you go up. It's also going to help you hold your breath underwater, which is not that useful unless you're really planning on doing an underwater base build. It's going to reduce dysentery, which is okay. But the big one here is that buffs from consumables last longer. This is the perk that really makes the brawler build shine, because you're going to want to be drinking beer non-stop. That's going to give you that insanely increased damage, and with Iron Gut, you're going to be able to sustain it. So your beer, your skull crushers, any other meds that you want to use are going to last longer. Next, we have Cardio. In the past, I would have probably given Cardio a B ranking, but I think I'm ready to move it up to A, and I'm going to show you why. So this one went from 3 to 5 ranks, from 1.0 to 2.0, and the first 3 do the same thing where you've got plus 10, 20, and 30% stamina regen while sprinting, but the 4th one here, it gets very interesting. Add 25% max stamina, and again adds 25% max stamina. So that's 50 stamina added to your bar to work with, which is a major difference, for sustaining in combat for long periods of time. Adds a really nice buffer even with all the stamina regen bits. In the agility tree, we'll start with the 3 core combat perks, which will all be A tier: Archery, Gunslinger, and Deep Cuts. Starting off with Archery, this is going to give you more damage as well as faster aim speed and draw speed. Next up, we have Gunslinger. This is going to give you additional damage, faster fire rate, and faster reload with handguns, which also includes the SMG. It's basically anything that's 9mm. At the 3rd level of this, you gain the ability for successive hits to cause critical damage. This is particularly powerful once you get a hold of an SMG, which is going to have that high fire rate. Next, we have Deep Cuts, which is going to govern knives and machetes. In addition to increased damage, this is also going to give you bleed over time, which can stack. It's also important to note that bleeding slows enemies, which allows you to put some space in between you and them. And finally, like all the other melee abilities, you'll get stamina back on kills. Next, we have the Whirlwind skill, which is going to be the speed skill for agility, governing how fast you can attack. So knives and machetes are going to be 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25% faster. Again, we're going to put this one as a B tier. And hopping into the athletic perks, we're also going to put Running Gun as a B tier. My logic behind this one is that it isn't required, but it really does change your gameplay. It's going to increase your accuracy when hip firing, but more importantly, it's going to reduce the penalty to your reload speed when you're moving. This can be the difference between life and death in some of those more frenetic engagements where you're out of ammo and you got to pull that quick reload. Next up, we're going to have Hard Target. I'm going to give this this one an A tier. It's really good. When they initially released this one, it was even better. So when moving, take 5% less damage, and then that scales up 5% per level. It was originally 10% per level, moving all the way up to 50% less damage while moving. This is fantastic. It's still not as good as Pack Mule because it's taking less damage, not full mitigation of damage. Obviously, when you pair it with something like Pack Mule, you've got some really strong damage mitigation. Parkour has always been the best evasive skill in the game. This has always been an S tier perk, and with the new changes, it's only gotten better. At the lower levels, it reduces the amount of stamina required to jump, and as this levels up, you're able to jump higher and higher, allowing you to get out of the range of zombies and to find good shooting positions. And with the new updates at level 5 now, you take 0 fall damage. So you can fall off of any building and you're perfectly fine, which is another great escape method. Next, we'll get into Agility Mastery, which I think is one of the weaker of the mastery trees. But the first one on here, leg hits have a 40% chance to instantly cripple enemies. I'm going to give this a C ranking because it's interesting, but not overly combat useful. You're not typically aiming for legs. You could use it situationally. The next one, rapid reload's pretty solid. Handguns reload 20% faster. I'm going to give this an A ranking. You know, you start combining this with run and gun, and your ability to reload and not really miss too much downtime in terms of DPS while you're going through that reload cycle is really nice. The next one here, Bleeding Hearts. So I agonized over this. I gave it the bleeding perk in Perception a C ranking. I'm probably going to keep that here. This perk suffers from the same challenges as the Perception Mastery perk in that it does 1 damage a second over 20 seconds. It doesn't stack with deep cuts, and overall it's a pretty insignificant amount of damage. The next one on the list here, Spectre's Grace. So this is another really good mitigation perk. I'm going to give this an A. Graceful reflexes deflect the first zombie or animal attack, and it basically recharges every 60 seconds. So if you're only hit once every 60 seconds, then it's just going to mitigate all that damage straight up. The level 5 mastery for agility is Piercing Precision, and it's absolutely the worst level 5 mastery in the game. The skill itself isn't horrible, with the ability to bypass enemy armor with a fully drawn bow shot and dealing an additional 25% damage. The problem is, by the time that you would actually be able to get this, which is around level 25, bows are mostly obsolete. For this reason, I'm going to give it an F. This could be a little bit more interesting if stealth was a viable mechanic in 7 Days to Die, but based on how POIs operate today, the trigger points make it not viable to really use stealth. Additionally, you can't use stealth on Horde Night, so ultimately I can't see any world where I would justify purchasing this. So now I gotta talk about the stealth perks, and we'll start with Hidden Strike, which gives you more damage when attacking from stealth. This scales from 50% all the way up to 250%. The only place I find this really useful is early game, putting a point or two into this as you're going through tier 1 POIs with a bow. But due to all the aforementioned stealth challenges, I don't put a lot of points in here. I'll still give it a B just because that early game it is helpful. From the Shadows allows you to sneak more effectively. It reduces the noises your actions create. It allows your sneak movement to increase. It also reduces the time that enemies will search for you. I'm going to give this one a C. I think that's might be even generous, but there's such limited application for this. You can't use it again on Horde Night. You can't use it in most POIs because of the triggers, and overall the stealth build is pretty weak. Last but definitely not least, we'll start off with the Intellect tree and jump into the combat perks of Electrocutioner and Robotics Inventor, which we'll both give as A tiers. The Electrocutioner is going to govern both batons and stun batons, and you'll see it does increase damage. It makes the electrical stun on zombies last longer. It's going to reduce stamina costs on killing blows. On level 4 and 5, it's going to give you stamina back. Next, we got the Robotics Inventor. This is going to govern your robotic sledge and your robotic turrets. So it's going to increase fire rate as it moves up. It's going to increase damage. It's going to increase the range that you can actually have these be active. And then on the last level, it's going to allow you to deploy 2 robots at once. Next, we have Calculated Attack, which is going to be your speed boost for batons. This is going to be a B tier, just like all the other speed boosts that are going to jump from 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25% extra speed. In the influence perks, we'll start off with Better Barter. We're going to give this one a B. This is going to basically increase the amount of barter skill that you have with the traders, so you'll incrementally get better and better deals with the traders, moving from 5% all the way up to 25%. Next, we'll cover Daring Adventure. I'm going to give this a C rating. In the past, I probably would have given this higher, but the trader loot has been so bad from doing quests. So this is going to give you better access to trader items, which is actually one of the better abilities you get from this. And you get 5% more dukes from quests. So that'll scale up 10, 15, 20. And then the top level of this allows you to pick 2 quest rewards, which used to be phenomenal and now is pretty much only good for when you complete your trader tier quests. Next up, we have the Charismatic Nature. So this one, I'm going to give a B tier. Now this is a very conditional skill because if you're playing with a team, it's really, really powerful. You know, the first level, allies and party members regenerate lost health 50% faster. They get better block and melee damage, and it just scales up to all kinds of crazy abilities. Allies and party members find 10% better loot, and then the top tier, this gives plus 20% better loot and plus 1 to all attributes. So if you're playing with a team, this can be really game-changing. In the general perks, the first thing that we have is Physician, and this is a definite A tier. This is one that I get all the time. The first level of this allows sprints and cast to cure sprains instantly, and I find those to be one of the most irritating injuries in the game. Then at level 3, you also get cast cure broken limbs instantly. And then level 4 and 5 are very combat driven. So you gain 20% additional dismemberment chance on enemies with batons. And the last one is just crazy. You get a 10% chance for insta-kill. And also all through your scaling up of levels in these, you also get increased speed of applying medical items as well as their, efficiency in terms of how much they heal you. Next is Advanced Engineering, and this is definitely another A tier one. Intellect just continues to be one of the most powerful trees in the game. So this will govern a lot of the books that you need in the game: electrical traps, forge ahead, handyland, and wiring. It is also going to allow you to craft things faster at the forge and at your workstations and workbenches and cement mixers. And as you progress, it's going to allow you to make forged steel cheaper, and it's also going to allow you to get XP from electrical trap kills in larger and larger increments. My only frustration with this perk is that, in my opinion, this should be in the general tab and probably not in the intellect tree, and that's going to be a theme you'll see throughout the intellect tree for me. Speaking of which, let's get to the next one that should be in the general tab, and that's Grease Monkey. Grease Monkey will govern your vehicle creation. I'm actually going to rank this one pretty low. I'm going to give this a C ranking because honestly, the only thing that I care about is boosting the loot odds for Vehicle Adventures magazine. The actual reduction in cost for these is nice, but it's fairly minimal because you are only crafting a vehicle once, and then the repair kit efficacy that you get is not that useful. Repair kits end up cheap by the end of the game, so not a big deal. So I'm going to give this a C ranking. I highly recommend getting the first level of this because otherwise you're just never going to get a vehicle going. But otherwise, spend your points elsewhere. For the final and perhaps best mastery of all the attributes, the intellect tree here starts off with a little bit of a weak one. So Master Pilot, I'm going to give this one a D. Vehicles take 20% less damage and consume 20% less fuel. This is a nice to have, but by the time you're getting here, the resources to manage that aren't that bad. Next, we have an S tier. Bookworm adds 25% chance to find a book, magazine, or schematic and loot. So that is one of the biggest bottlenecks in terms of progression in the game for you to up your crafting. So this is a massive bump. And then that is additive with the next one, which is another S tier. Photographic memory adds 50% chance to gain 2 skill points while reading magazines. This pairs well with the nerd outfit, which also gives you 50% chance to get an extra skill point. So if you're using this with the nerd outfit, you have a guaranteed 100% chance to get 2 skill points every time you read a magazine. Next, we have Genius Fury. Stun batons only take 2 hits to charge. I'm going to give this an A. I'm a little bit disappointed because this one doubles up kind of with the next one, but it's still really, really powerful, but it's so briefly lived that I wish they would have come up with something a little bit more creative or different for this slot. Then here, this last one, things just get wild with stun baton charge is always ready. This is an S tier because you're just walking around shocking everything. You can basically crowd control a whole mass of zombies. So those are the int mastery perks. I think you're going to see a lot of people doing this new meta where they basically rush their initial starting game and they go for photographic memory here, get all the magazine points that they need, and then they will use a forgetting elixir to shift into whichever build they would like to. But that is by far the best progression path that you have in the game. I expect to see a lot of people doing that. Finally, we have the general perks tab made of perks that were spread across various attributes in the past, starting off with light armor. I'm going to rank this one a B. At the high level, this one is going to reduce durability use as it scales up. Additionally, as of this last patch, they've added in this new feature which gains between 1 and 4 armor rating for each piece of light armor equipped. This allows you to leverage the mobility of light armor without losing the armor rating. The only challenge to this is that all the armor skills are pretty expensive to buy. The first level is 1 point, the second and third level are 2 points, and then the fourth level is 3 points. So medium and heavy armor, I'm going to both rank C. They have similar perks as you progress in each of them. They will reduce armor movement and stamina penalties, as well as reducing durability use. Next in line is Master Chef. This is a weird one. So again, this gets expensive. It's 1, 2, and 3 for the levels. So at the first level, use 20% less ingredients, cook 40% faster. I think the first level's okay. I think it gets a little bit expensive to bother with the ones that follow after that. I'm going to give this a C because you end up with more materials typically than you need. This might be useful if you're on a community server and you're the cook for everybody, but otherwise, I don't find this to be that useful of a skill. Now, the next one, Living Off the Land, is another complicated one because I'm going to give this an A rank, but I'm going to give it an A rank, honestly, just for the first level of it. Again, this is going to cost 1, 2, and 3 points for the various levels. The first one doubles your harvest of wild or planted crops, and farm plots cost 30% less to craft. So that alone kind of gets you most of the benefit that you need. The second one for 2 points, 50% chance to get an additional crop, and then the farm plot reduction in cost, which is not a big deal. The final one gives you the triple harvest. Again, if you are the farmer of the group, this might be useful. Now for what is not useful, that would be lockpicking. This skill basically allows you to pick locks faster, as well as having a lower chance of breaking your picks when you're trying to break in. As it scales up, you'll also have a higher chance of getting lockpicks back from loot. For me, this just falls flat because you can just use a pickaxe or an auger to break into something. At least in 1.0, we had a reason to buy this because you had an increased chance for Forge Ahead mags to drop. Not that that made any logical sense, but all the same, it at least gave some value to this skill. Okay, so the final perk we have here is Lucky Looter, and for this one, it's also a little bit expensive in terms of the cost. It's 1, 2, 2, 2, and then 3. So the first level of this, 5% loot bonus, and then 10% faster looting, and that scales up 5% per level. This is pretty good, but you don't want to really get this until mid to late game, and I would give this one a B tier. I personally always find this a tricky balance to figure out when you have enough loot stage for that percentage bonus to make a difference. If you hit it right though, it can push you into that next tier. Hey folks, it's Psycho here. I hope you enjoyed my completely unbiased review of all the new perks in 7 Days to Die 2.0. If you want to go back in history, 4 years ago, I did the same thing for my very first video on Alpha 19. I'll post that over there for humor's sake. Go drop me a comment on that ancient video just to see how the game's changed. It's very fascinating to go back and look. But anyway, huge thanks as always to my incredible supporters over here. I'll see everyone on the next video. Cheers.